Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Ma. Yes, we can, Ma.
Good afternoon, Madam Titi.
Yeah, can you see me?
No, we can't. We can only see something shared on the screen. We can't see you, Ma.
Okay, fine. So I just wanted to test to see whether we can hear us before we start.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. It's good to welcome everyone to this very beautiful session. And just to let you know that the session stands out to hold so much for all of us, especially the women entrepreneurs. Undoubtedly, all of us know the place of finance in all that we're doing today. And because of this session is specially designed for us to see what we have been doing as advocates, as climate enthusiasts, and indeed, as those that have carried out one activity or the other, so that moving forward, we will continue to mobilize the active participation of African women for a gender-responsive climate finance and access, especially to green climate fund through the Africa Gcf Gender Monitor Program. Today, we have those enthusiasts. We have those that have been there at the forefront of advocating for the women especially. And interestingly, all of them here are women, except me. I have Titilokbe Ngozi Akosa, who is the Executive Director, Center for 21st Century Issues. I have Imarian Amatu, who is the National Coordinator, Gender and Climate Change, Tanzania Coalition, GCF Country Monitor for the country. I also have Ms. Chima George, who is the CEO, Climate Finance Consulting. She is a climate finance expert. And indeed, the last but not the least, Nuru Mugabe, who is the Director of Public Affairs and Sustainable Finance for KBA, Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, you're all welcome to our session titled, Making the Green Climate Finance, Green Climate Fund, GCF Work for Women in Africa. This is a program led by the 21st Century Issues, for which Madam Akosa is the Executive Director, a partnership with both ends, WIDO, Natural Eco Capital, and WEB. Ladies and gentlemen, without having to waste so much time, as you're already seeing on the platform there, we have this agenda. We will look at lessons from the African Gender Monitors Network and GCF Community of Practice in Nigeria. We will also look at the presentation and mobilization of women in Tanzania to understanding and participating in the GCF processes. Again, how can we create the opportunity for the trend of climate finance? we will have that topic as well. The supports or supportive role of climate finance in working with NISA to become direct access entity, we will also give attention to that. Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting so much time, I would like to call on Ms. Titilope Akosa, who will be speaking up to that very first aspect of, we saw the agenda, lessons from the Africa Gender Monitors Network and GCF Community of Practice in Nigeria. Barrister Akosa. Barrister, just to let you know that she doesn't like taking that. She is a lawyer. So please go ahead and talk to us. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay,
Loud and
great.
clear.
Yes, we
Great.
can hear you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. And I would like to share my screen. Before I start, I want to thank all of you that have taken time. Today is Sunday, I know, and it's very early for people to start doing a Zoom call, but we want to appreciate a lot of you who are already on this call, and we know a lot of people are still going to join. So today I'm going to speak about what we have been doing concerning the GCF at the African level, and some of what we've been able to achieve also in some African countries. So can I share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Great. So is my screen visible now? Hello?
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, it's showing. It's
Great.
showing. But all you need to do is to put it on a slideshow mode.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do now.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay. Now, we need to put the context right in place. Because why is it that we are talking about the Green Climate Fund? Why are we talking about women? What are the challenges? When we are talking about finance, you will all agree with me that it's because there is a problem to be solved and we need money to solve them. So we need to look at the gender context of the climate finance challenge itself. And then before we now go back to what is happening in Africa in terms of climate finance and how is gender implicated in all this. So a lot of us will remember that early this year, I think maybe the middle of this year, the IPCC report was released and it was a frightening report. It was a red code for humanity. So we've got just few years to go before climate change becomes irreversible. So all of us agree with me that climate change itself is becoming a climate emergency. So that's the real word we are using now. It's a climate emergency. And in terms of addressing climate finance, we know over the years we've been discussing in the UNFCCC, out of UNFCCC, all over the world, in various forums, in Africa, in other continents. We've been discussing the issue of how can we get enough funds to address the impacts of climate change and mitigate climate change. So there is this promise from Copenhagen of 100, no, it's not Copenhagen, I think South Africa. So 100 billion USD promise per year. That is what we've had. But what we really need to address climate change is far, far, far beyond that. And if you look at the climate change landscape report produced by Policy Initiative, you will see what actually we need trillions of USD to address the impacts of climate change. First, investment is needed to meet Paris Agreement temperature goal, 2 degrees to 1.5 degrees. That is what the Global Climate Finance Landscape Report said. And we know that women form the majority of the world's poor, living in poverty and are disproportionately affected by climate change. This is what has been acknowledged world over. We also know that investment in gender equality are vastly insufficient and only a small proportion of aid addresses women's specific needs. That is the report of Oxfam in 2018. And we know that since 2019, we have been battling with the issue of COVID. And COVID is compounding existing climate change emergency and the gender equality issues that we already have on ground. So that is the context in which we are all operating, and women's issue is so peculiar in this regard. Now, what is the gender context of the African climate finance needs? We know the African adaptation finance needs are estimated to be USD 50 billion per year. You can imagine. And then the whole world said, the developed countries said we are going to be releasing 100 billion per year. If only Africa alone needs 50 billion, that's just an estimate. Yeah. So you can imagine that whatever funds that is flowing right now, it's not enough to meet the challenges on the ground. And in sub-Saharan Africa, adaptation finance flows are far lower at only USD 2.1 billion. We need 50 billion. And yet what has flowed between 2003 and 2019 is just 2.1 billion. And yet we needed 50 billion per year. You can imagine the vast gaps. And then African women face unique obstacles in accessing financial services, from regulations and policies meant to actually promote financial inclusion. You see, the financial issues are already there. Now we don't have money. So all those financial issues that are already on the ground, adding climate finance to it, you understand what that means for every African woman. There is little evidence that climate finance flows into Africa actually delivers finance to women on the ground. This is Oxfam report for 2018. So those are our challenges. So how do we deal with it? What does Green Climate Fund brings on the table for us? We know that the GCF is the main multilateral financing channel under the UNFCCC, and is the main financial mechanism to implement the Paris Agreement and assist developing countries also to implement their nationally determined contributions. So the Green Climate Fund is so important in this discussion right now. All over the world, that is where the pool of funds to address climate change is being deposited now. So how will this fund work for women? What promises does it hold for women? Of course, the GCF is the first climate fund that mandated gender consideration from its outset. So it means that when the GCF fund is starting, it actually recognizes gender and women issues. So that's a plus for women. Then GCF governing instruments and objectives in paragraph 3 says that the fund will strive to maximize the impact of its funding for adaptation and mitigation and seek a balance between the two while promoting environmental, social, economic, and development co-benefits and taking a gender-sensitive approach. And that's what is written there in the instrument. So it also has the possibility to be a vehicle for a transformative project on climate change that fully engages women's groups and local actors. And these are the potentials that we see in the GCF. And that's why, as African women, we have started engaging the GCF. It's also
I don't think we can hear you again. We cannot hear you again. Titi, we seem to have lost your presentation there. Can any person hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear you as well.
Thank you. I think Titi is having challenges with her network. But she was just trying to tell us the challenges that women have in assessing GCF form. So maybe while we're waiting for her, perhaps we will just have to bring somebody else to speak while we're waiting for her to, because we have just an hour for this program. Matthew, are you ready for your presentation so that we just come up with that?
Yes, I'm ready.
Beautiful. So she'll be talking on mobilization of women in Tanzania to understand and participate in the GCF process. So let's hear from you on how this is being done or how you are doing this, please.
All right. Technology first. I'm trying to see how I can share my screen. So my name is Maria Matini, and I am a GCF country monitor in Tanzania, East Africa. And as I am working towards sharing my screen, I will be speaking about how the GCF started here in the country, Tanzania, and then what is the process right now, and how are we working with the Africa monitor, that is Titi, who was giving the presentation just 2 minutes ago. Is my screen up?
Yeah, we can see the screen.
Okay, so I was just going through my outline. I'll be providing a general background on GCF monitors in the country, in Tanzania, and why we thought we needed engagement of the monitors and whatever that will be followed in that structure. So the GCF monitors in Tanzania started in year 2019 precisely. And this started after a meeting which we had with Global Green Alliance partners, whereas among the issues that were discussed is the women leadership in climate financing and urgency in African continent. For the context of Tanzania, by then, we were not very engaging on the whole context of climate financing, particularly women leading the agenda. So I took it forward as a member of Global Green Alliance and also a partner of both ends, who are also funding the, I think, partners of this project. And I introduced it to our members. I'm calling them members now, but then they're just civil society organizations that we had partnership with as an organization, which I also lead in the country. And it was positively received. So we engaged both ends to see how we can push forward the agenda in the country. And by doing that, we thought it was important first to know what are the gaps that are existing in the country. So we had a courteous visit with the Prime Minister's office, which is designated on looking at the whole issues relating to climate change and climate financing, and later engaged the Vice President's office. Again, they were very positive in seeing how women civil society will want to engage on the whole conversation around the GCF. So for environmental organizations and on GCF group discussions in 6 day-to-day work in 6 regions of the country, but also now we consider them as 6 zones of national monitors. So in each zone, we had a meeting for not less than 30 people, including those civil societies and grassroots organizations. We also invited local government authorities. Again, the reason of inviting local government authorities was to establish a lasting relationship with the government, but also now we knew that the Vice Prime Minister's office had a plan of seeking accreditation with the GCF funding, and most of the projects actually they are implemented within the local authorities designated areas, and that in case of within any of the regions where these projects will be implemented, then it will be easier for the monitors to be establish the work relationship and having the follow-up mechanism. So with the studies and engagement on what the understanding was with the civil societies and grassroots organization, by and large, the findings informed us that there was really no much understanding, or rather there was no understanding of GCF, and mostly how women can take the leadership, and of most importance, how now we can champion the agenda within the country, but ensuring that women themselves are part of the process, but also the local government authorities are also understanding what is the gap. So we followed up by having an engagement with the Prime Minister's office, where we requested to have a national symposium. And the National Symposium invited the gender link offices from different ministries and departments of the government. We also invited civil societies working on climate change, environmental issues, human rights, and such as CBOs, which are mostly working in the grassroots organizations. And the resolutions of that national symposium, which was the first symposium in the country to discuss GCF, and which also included both government officials and civil society organizations and parliamentarians, was the need now to have an established platform which will bring together stakeholders as having an area where they can now have practices shared, but also understanding what are the gaps, how this can be taken forward, how can they build the momentum, and how now collaboratively we can come up with the solutions on the projects which are implemented already in the country, but the upcoming projects which as monitors we usually engage on reviewing the proposals. So now, this was part of the expanding the mandates, but in between that, the organization which we are hosting the monitors, we decided to engage a study on the project which is funded, which is on water irrigation in the region called Simiu, to conduct an assessment what is the understanding within the communities by women themselves, and if they were engaged, and if they were not engaged, what are the challenges? So that also brought some other findings, which we shared with the respective ministry, but also we took it forward as monitors to see how best we can escalate the findings that we found out, and how we can build momentum on the issues that they were found on the project. So I won't go much into that one, but then I'll want to speak much on the current situation. So the National Symposium, which brought different stakeholders, among the recommendation after the knowledge that there was still a gap and there's a need of collaborations, but then advised by the government, it was not really seemed to be very impressive, sort of, because we are working as the loose network, and being a loose network, maybe for them it seems to be of less commitment, or something which can just come and just disappear in a moment. So they recommended if we can formalize the process of us working together and see how we can now collaborate more formally with the government. So last year, November, the Gender and Climate Change Tanzania Coalition was formally established, and the founding members are the national GCF monitors in 6 regions, which are considered as the 6 zones of our work. But also with that establishment, we also build together all the gaps that we thought that there's a need of putting them together and bringing stakeholders, particularly the policymakers and the government, and very specific, the Vice President's Office, which is the national designated authority with green climate financing, to see how we can now build the momentum going forward. So we conducted a study on the gender gaps on the environmental law, on climate change issues, gender and climate change strategy, all those policy and legal documents to inform our, sort of recommendation and informing how best we can be engaging the government. So this study was launched this year in July, and from that study now, we have more formalized establishment of working with the Vice President's Office. And this is September. From last month, August, we have been starting having discussions on how we can elaborate further and build or rather popularize the gender and climate change strategy, which was launched in 2013, but it didn't have much popularization within the country. And of recent launched gender and climate change strategy 2021-2026, interlinking the same with the National Development Plan of 2021 for the second phase. The first one is dating is 2025. So all these collaborations now are being done collectively with the Vice President's Office, but also with the Prime Minister's Office, with a very keen follow-up with the country monitor, myself as a country monitor, but also with the national monitors, which are working in 6 regions of the country. And they're working very closely with the local government authorities, but also with the civil society organizations, particularly women. So what are the challenges and the gaps that we see in the whole process? So the challenge is that as national monitors, we are observing, and maybe because of the context of our work, most of these organizations have specific tasks and maybe objectives of their own organizations. And the role of national monitors and myself as a country monitor includes to ensure that the projects which have already been approved in the country, they are properly followed up, particularly on the implementation stage, and what are the gaps that are existing in those projects, but also what are the opportunities for women in those respective projects. So far, it was only us as the hosting organization which have been able to conduct a study and bring the outcome of the study with the government officials, but also sharing them with the country monitors, and also trying to see how best we can engage further with other stakeholders. And if I may also report, there is another organization now, it's specifically located in that particular area where the project, this FP 041 is implemented, and they are keenly following up holistically on how the project is being implemented, but the element of gender or women participation, that is still missing. The other challenge I would say, which we are still, or I still see is still existing, is the in-depth understanding of the monitors on how they can dive deep on the analyzing the climate projects which are submitted to the Gender Climate Financing GCF fund. And this is because of the magnitude of the proposal themselves, but also the need to understand how gender issues can be pulled out and identified, and then recommend the best ways or suggest impact of those projects, just in case the board will be passing them without having that keen understanding or keen maybe approval of knowing that the impact of them being going forward without gendered eye being there, it's also great. And the other thing that I see is the GCF Gender Policy itself, which has been updated. And here is all understanding that the policies there, the policies, it informs a lot on what is needed to be done by the project implementers, both before the project being approved, while the project is being approved, and after the project being approved. And all that is the process which needs not just for few organizations to have an in-depth understanding, but collectively now coming as African monitors on this GCF fund to voice our ideas together. And this, I think that is done very, very well by Titi, but also a lot of work is still needed to ensure that we don't miss our the opportunity that we have is now. And for the country as Tanzania, I must highlight this, before the passing president speak it so clearly, the need of including gender in police issues, but also in budgetary allocations. And this was during his inaugural speech with the members of parliament, but also recently our current president, Her Excellency Samia, she also echoed the same, and she's more, I would say, prioritizing the issue of climate change and gender as one of our agendas to take it forward. So I think for us, this is a momentum opportunity to build these issues and to ensure that the society now, not just us as monitors are working this alone, but we work it collectively with the government officials. And through the gender and green climate, through the Gender Coalition, we have identified 2 champions. We had one before, but there's another one who is a member of parliament through the NGO sector, who also requested if she can be a champion who will be speaking about gender financing, gender allocation of budget for climate financing and such issues. And maybe also I would say we did not, or we are not much looking into other avenues of financing to support the work, particularly, or the other opportunities which are already there, such as a GEF or the small funding by the UNDP. And the reason being, we see there's a need of having first a better understanding what the GCF monitors work entails, what does the gender policy of GCF entails, and the opportunity which you already have with the national designated authority. And now we are going forward on analyzing the gender policy and strategy. How now can we pull out issues which now can bring out conversations and other issues which are already in the pipeline, but it's only that it has not been popularized, or they're just not been seen or believed they're issues which relates to gender, climate change, and gender financing. And we believe with that strategy now, we'll be able to collectively do much more on financing for climate change, and particularly for gender issues and women in specific. So I guess I've already been way forward. What I have next is just activities that have been done, the pictures, the first on the left and the other one on the top. These ones were during the moments when we were engaging the national monitors. So these are just samples from two regions which we conducted those engagement sessions with civil societies, organizations. And the one down there is when we had the national symposium with government officials. So number of government officials, and this is the member of parliament and some national monitors, GCF monitors in the country. And this was the recent one in July when we were launching the position paper, and the lady here at the middle, she's a deputy environmental specialist under the vice president's office. And actually she was the one who was in charge to develop the gender strategy 2013. And with this, the launch, the vice president office, they were the time that they gave the commitment to see collaboration and to move forward the agenda that we were, addressing as it was. So all this year, national monitors and the administrator. So what is the need for engaging the civil society, particularly women-led organization, is still high, and taking that seriously and understanding the issue of in-person meetings and such as that, we still harness the opportunity that we have. And with that, we started a series of online sessions from August this year. And the first session involved GCF Gender Policy to take through civil society organizations and national monitors what the GCF entails, what are the opportunities, and how we can build on that opportunity, not just for financing itself, but having that as a tool to use while we are advocating and then following up with other partners, particularly the government. And yes, and the second webinar that we had was Women's Agents Master in Climate Financing.
Sorry, we have to interrupt. Could you kindly mute Amina?
Amina, my microphone. Amina, mic yako iko on.
Administrator, please could you mute Amina if she can't hear us?
I'm doing that.
The host,
Yes,
kindly
I'm doing
mute
that.
her.
Please excuse me.
Okay, so I'm
Meanwhile,
finishing
Maria,
up.
you please.
I'm
because
sorry,
of
I'm
time,
sorry,
you
I'm
want-
sorry.
Maria, you want to kindly round up because of we still have so much to say from other speakers. Thank you. Maria, you are muted. Unmute yourself.
Sorry for that. So, and the other webinar we had just 3 days ago, it was roles of NDA in facilitating climate financing and women agency. And we're expecting to have another one on women's roles as custodian, and then having national monitors sharing their experience with other stakeholders and other series, which will be happening until December. So for me, this is what I had to share, and I'm grateful. I'm returning the mic and the platform back to you. Thank you.
It has worked and how this GCF process is working in Tanzania. Thank you. In Nigeria, Titi, would you want to quickly speak to that and round up? You had challenges with your network.
Yes,
please.
just give me some 5 minutes so that I can quickly sort that out. Yeah.
Okay, so while you are doing that, then I would like to call on Chima George to do her presentation. Chima, I believe you have so much to say in terms of the supportive role of climate finance in working with NISA. In terms of their becoming direct access entity in Nigeria, as well as the role they have played as climate finance accelerator. Chima, are you there? Would you want to do your presentation now, please? You are muted, Chima George. Yeah, Chima, if you are there, you want to speak to this topic that we have here, please go ahead. Meanwhile, before she speaks, in order to cover this gap that we seem to be having,
She's there.
ladies and gentlemen, if you have any question, if you have any comment, if you have any contribution, please insert them in the chat box so that we're able to collect them and our great speakers respond to them, please.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm very sorry. I didn't know it was my turn yet.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll be talking about my role in my supportive role in assisting NISAL to access readiness support. So I worked with NISAL in partnership with International Center for Tropical Agriculture to develop 6 climate risk profiles. And while I was working on that project, NISAL had another consultant, which was helping them become an accredited entity. So helping them with the application of becoming a direct access entity. So I didn't work with NISAL on becoming a direct access entity. However, they have since submitted that report or that proposal, and they're now looking at assessing readiness fund. So what I did, how I supported NISAL was in their development of a proposal for the Readiness Fund. So just a brief on the readiness strategy, GCF readiness strategy. So the GCF readiness strategy has changed from the initial one. It has a new strategy, and now the strategy has 4 different sections that it looks at. Now, the 4 different sections that the strategy looks at is capacity building for climate finance coordination, which support under this objective can include NDA, National Determined Accredited, National Designated Authority, strengthening, enhancing coordination mechanisms and other capacity buildings for the capacity building support for direct entity and implementing partners. Strategic framework for low carbon, low emission investment. This support includes development of country programs, entity work programs, long-term low emission development strategies and action plan. Strengthened adaptation planning. This looks at development of a national, subnational or sectoral adaptation plan, catalyzing private sector engagement in adaptation finance and producing the evidence basis for impactful adaptation investment. Paradigm shifting pipeline development. Support under this objective includes development of concept note, pipeline metrics and indicators, and costed action plans for priority documents such as the NDCs. Knowledge sharing and learning, which includes peer-to-peer, South-South learning exchanges and development of tailored knowledge products. The revised objectives capture the country-driven evolution of the readiness program while taking into consideration the country demand to foster strategic deployment of resources with a view to enhancing national ambition. Now, to look at the readiness support and the different sections or sectors. Now, the first stage of the readiness support, the application for the readiness support, has to do with the summary. So the summary describes how the grant will deliver on the country's readiness need and build on institution processes or existing work already underway in the country. So the country and the people that can submit a proposal for readiness within a country is either the National Designated Authority, which is usually the ministry. In different countries it differs, but in Nigeria is the Ministry of Environment, or organizations trying to access direct access entity. So in Nigeria now, there are 2 organizations, 2 agencies trying to be an accredited entity to the GCF. We have the Development Bank of Nigeria and we have NISA. Then it also has date of initial submission. You have to have a letter, nominated delivery partner, you have to have a letter from the ministry or the NDA, a no objection letter, then the title of the readiness support. So I'm not sure how much information I can share about the readiness support because this readiness proposal was developed within NISA. It was the GCF Secretariat advised NISA it would be better for them to build their capacity internally and therefore for their staff and their team to develop the proposal. So they developed quite a chunk of it. I only assisted in budgeting, looking at the different values for budgeting, discussing different programs and different organizations or how the project will be implemented. So outside the summary, the next section in the readiness plan is the situation analysis. So the situation analysis provides a summary of readiness challenges, needs of gaps that have been identified, and this should be in line with the country's baseline situation in area of sectors to be supported by the proposed intervention. Then the next stage of the proposal is the logical framework. So NISA was looking at, part of programs we're looking at putting in the logical framework or for the grant was support for the National Designated Authority. They were also, which is the Ministry of Environment, they were also looking at also driving investment from the private sector. They were also looking at a lot of research, a lot of evaluation of already existing policies in the country. After the logical framework is the theory of change, the next section. A theory of change is a tool used to describe how an intervention that's readiness can trigger a chain of results to produce the stated impact of goals of the intervention. This section consists of two parts, the theory of change diagram and how it is going to be, and the theory of change narrative. So NISA was looking at working with a series of partners and stakeholders to implement the readiness. Stakeholders such as the ministry, other ministries, CSOs, and development partners. So they were going to have a team which consists of the technical support team, consultants that are going to work on the project with NISA, and also a committee from the Ministry of Environment, looking at the different sectors or different areas in the ministry, such as adaptation, desk officers in ministries, adaptation, and climate finance and mitigation. After the theory of change, then there is the budget plan.
So, sorry, Chima, you may want to be rounding up. Sorry, because of time, we're hitting right the hour, please, so that Titi can round up and Nuru can speak a bit.
Okay, so let me just round up. Then the budget. So after all this, the readiness plan is proposal rather is submitted to Gcf, and they're waiting for a response. So NISA is looking at implementing about 2 projects under the readiness, and they're still in the wait for a response from the Gcf. But the key things that were included are support capacity building for the ministry, and also catalyzing private sector finance. And it is also important to note that in order for them to have reached this stage, they have a gender action plan and a gender policy already in place. They need that, of course, to become a direct accredited entity. Thank you very much.
Excellent, and thank you very much for taking us through what NISA has been doing in trying as much as possible to become direct access entity in Nigeria. And of course, is their role as climate finance accelerator. Thank you. And Nuru, I don't know whether you are there. Okay. Titi, you were to round up your, we have just few minutes so that perhaps we will give some few minutes to our audience who have comments, but it's just that we don't have that time. Please, like we said earlier, can you insert your comments, your questions right there in the chat box so that our great speakers can quickly take that? That will be very beautiful, please. Meanwhile, Titi, please, we want to round up your part. Yeah.
Can you really hear me? Can you hear me now?
Loud and excellent. Beautiful.
Great. Can Titi please let me share my screen so that I can.
Yes, go ahead and share your screen.
Great. So hello, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see it. We can see it.
So
put it on slideshow.
Yeah. So
just to let you know, we have about 10 minutes left. We should be able to leave at least 5 minutes for our audience to ask one question or the other.
because we're gaining a lot of members since the time we had a network activity on the ICASA platform, and we've been making presentation on different platforms to get more women in Africa to join the network. And we've participated in 5 GCF board meetings between 2018 and 2019, and the Global GCF Observer Group Network. So we are part of the civil society network at the GCF level. We have discussed and reviewed over 30 proposals and joint action plans from Africa to the GCF, as well as 5 GCF policy documents collectively with the GCF CSO Observer Group. So we always try to put in our voice from Africa as women into most of these projects that are slated for approval at the board. We ensure local women's voices and concerns are reflected. We mobilize local women through country gender monitors who facilitate their engagement. You have heard the story of what is happening in Tanzania, how women in Tanzania have been mobilized to advocate for more GCF funding in their country and to even engage in the processes so that at the end of the day, they will also benefit from the funds that come into their countries. Then the GCF African Gender Monitors project was shared as one of the best practices at one of this meeting with Climate Chance in 2019. Our goals is to participate in GCF policy discussions. We review and analyze proposed GCF projects and accredited entities, identifying and reaching out to partners in the affected area or with history with the accredited entities to capture additional insights. Just like I said, we review all these projects as one voice, as one African women, to look at all these projects that have been put on the table on our behalf. And if we think that there are issues to be addressed, we put those issues on the table as the project is going to the board. We monitor and analyze implemented GCF projects. There are projects that are currently being implemented on the ground now, and some of the plans we're having is to have accountability forums with all these project proponents so that we know the level of implementation and how they have been engaging women on the ground in their projects. Then we share knowledge and create knowledge products regarding public issues, some of the things we've been doing. And in the next 1 month, we'll be sharing our lessons learned with both hands who has been supporting us and with all our country monitors in the next 1 month. And it's going to be another way of learning for us all. We collect and present key information necessary for local communities to impute, engage, and develop strategies to monitor where climate finance is flowing in their countries. So wherever money is flowing, we don't also want to limit ourselves only to GCF because we also talk about climate finance in general. So in the in-countries, we also look at
Titi, we seem to have lost your network again. Just for those of you that okay, Titi, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, great. So in Nigeria,
just to let you know, sorry, we have 6 minutes left.
Okay,
so
give me 2 minutes
for the next 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes, then I'll round up. So these are the projects that we have in Nigeria from the Just Women Demand Gender Just Climate Finance. We have Strengthening African Women's Voice that is being supported, and our side event today is being supported by African Women Development Fund. We have the Local Women Engaging Climate Finance and the GCF, which is supported by both ends, and we've been on that for 2 years. So some of the important activities or impacts that we have had about trained over 300 women on GCF processes, readiness and no objection letter. We set up a community of practice. You can see some of our pictures. And then right now, we are now linked to our NISRA that wants to be our direct access entity to work with them to see what we can do as women to raise voice for them within the GCF so that they can get their accreditation speedily. Now in Nigeria, we are calling for climate solutions for women. and how we can put up a women's climate finance strategy so that we are ready to attract funds for our local women. And that's all we've been doing. These are some of the important issues we've been engaging at the African level and in Nigeria. Thank you very much for listening.
That was a thought-provoking presentation. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been quite excellent hearing from all our women. If you have any question, any comment, would you want to put it in the chat box? Take note, it's been a side event at the Africa Climate Week 2021. Do you have any question? Please, kindly put it in the chat box. We do not have opportunity to give you, we have just 4 minutes. Okay, I would like to give an opportunity to Farmata Osman. Please just limit your statement because we do not have that luxury of time. You want to go ahead, please?
So there is a question in the chat box.
Farmata, you want to speak while we're picking a question in the chat box? Now the question is, how grassroots organizations like cooperatives and village community banking for women, who are 85% of group members, are involved, and how can we make them as clear case study in this involvement to assess the fund equality? But I think it's just trying to say the cooperatives and village community. So Titi, any of the speakers, please, would you want to pick this question and make comments on it?
Thank you very much, Dr. Itwa. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah.
We can hear you. Please go ahead. And then for Farmata, if you want to speak, I have given you 1 minute. No, you are sharing your screen now. What we need you to do is to respond to the question, Titi. Or Chima. Any of you can speak, please. Maria, you want to speak?
Okay, so let me just give a few comments.
Please.
I don't quite understand the question. So are you saying how can grassroots organizations like cooperatives and village community banking for women who are 85? Okay, so you're looking at women in the village, rural areas, assessing the fund. So I think the platform that TT is trying to set up will be able to help people access funds. Already there is a call for solutions. So I think the first thing is to apply for a solution in your community. So there's a call open, and I think it's for NGOs. So that's the first step you can take in assessing climate funds.
Hello, if I may. I'm just trying to guess, but I think maybe the person asking the question is from Tanzania. I'm not sure, because of this village community organizations. They are not just in rural areas, they're everywhere around the country, and it depends on who wants to be part of it. They're in short term, they're called BICOBA. And just echoing from the former speaker, I think the best way to start is identifying which groups already are working in this area. Because we are talking about climate financing. And already in Tanzania, for instance, we have a number of organizations which are already focusing on issues relating to either financing directly for women issues or climate financing, particularly for climate change issues. So the focus here is on climate financing. So maybe.
Sorry, Maria, thank you very much. We do not want to go beyond the time. We have just 1 hour to close out this. We have just a minute, half a minute left. So thank you very much. We want to thank all of you. It's been making the Green Climate Fund, GCF, work for women in Africa. And we've had excellent presentations from Titi Akosa, from Maria Matul, from Chima George, Thank you very much. And just to say that let's reach out. In fact, something was put in the chat box that register. Once you register, your questions, your concern, your comments can further be given attention to. We want to thank all of you for being part of this. My name is Dr. Eugene Itua, the CEO of Natural Eco Capital. It's been a brilliant one, a brilliant session. I do hope you will all have taken one thing or the other, at least in understanding how women can latch onto this very platform to access funds. This is a program brought to you by 21st Century Issues as the lead, and then in partnership with both ends, Widow, Natural Eco Capital, and Web. We want to thank all of you for being part of this. Have a blessed day. For those of you that are still here, you can be rubbing minds together